Good morning, everybody. So, welcome. It's day 52. So, I've been doing a small body. So, I'm doing this. I'm a member of Triratna Buddhist Centre. So I'm doing this series on compassionate response. Well, I'm doing a whole load of talks and practice sessions on compassionate response to COVID-19, and this is. And the group's in different series. So this series is Buddhist Metaphysics, so looking at some of the kind of background philosophy behind Buddhism. And so this week we've looked at the middle way. So the middle way is the Buddhist view of the way forward that takes us between the extremes of eternalism, where we think that on some level we're going to live forever, or parts of our experience will live forever, which tends to lead towards maybe kind of religious dogmatism and things like that, or harshness sometimes in the way that we treat ourselves, where we judge ourselves quite harshly and things. So that's one extreme that can happen, and then another extreme that we can adopt is that, or live our lives by, is it's called annihilationism. So we don't think anything's going to happen after death. We're just annihilated, and therefore the tendency is that we kind of think, oh well, let's maximise the amount of pleasure we can get out of life, and you can end up with a kind of hedonistic lifestyle where there isn't any meaning that beyond what you can experience or what you can amass or whatever it is. So in that talk, I talked about the middle way being like, if the first example is clinging to a bit of driftwood, we're in the water, but we're just hanging onto to a log. Is the more asceticism, and then the ocean-going yacht is like the hedonism, which we don't really need all of that luxury really to survive. But what we need is something like a raft or a rubber dinghy that will just keep us out of the water, but we won't be consuming all the Earth's resources and that sort of thing. Yeah, so that was the middle way, and then I talked about the Buddha's, had a session on the Buddha's enlightenment, which was on Buddha Day. So it was actually the anniversary of the Buddha's enlightenment, roughly 2,500 years ago. And then in the third session we looked at being and doing. So different models within spiritual practice. Ones where you try and develop something, other ones where you think that there's just something innate in me. I just need to let it be revealed. So the idea of Buddha nature is in there, and Buddhist practice like Mahamudra and Dzogchen is in that area. So I've talked about that, kind of tried to contextualize all that, and then we had a session on Buddhism and science, which and I talked about how the way that science progresses is that through observation, and people make observations, and then the scientific community replicate those, and then if they're successfully replicated, then that knowledge becomes accepted within the scientific community and becomes part of the oeuvre or whatever. But then with Buddhism, or maybe with other religions, it's more based on first-person experience. What's internal, what you judge for yourself is right, or what you have faith in, or what you think is a wise way forward. And in that way, when everybody does that, when everybody judges for themselves, and then they think, oh, this person has something interesting to say about life, then what happens is you build up a kind of community of spiritual practitioners that some are more experienced than others, and in a way that's how that builds. That's how Buddhism builds up, through personal experience and resonating with people who you think have got something about them. That's what's most convincing, really, when somebody's exemplifying something rather than they're just talking about it as a good idea. So, that they're showing, not telling. And then had a session on secular mindfulness. Tried to contextualise. I talked about Jeff Wilson's book, Mindful America, which gives some interesting ideas around the whole growth of the mindfulness movement, and I tried to show how the teachings given in within the secular mindfulness courses actually fit in within the bigger picture of Buddhism, and how Buddhism goes beyond those in different ways, such as in the way that we in Buddhism we're invited to investigate our whole lifestyle and everything. Is that conducive to happiness? So, our lifestyle that might be something that takes us beyond what the society's norms are. That sort of thing. Like individualism and materialism tend to be the norms in Western society. So Buddhism takes us beyond that to be aware of other people and to examine examine the truth about our lives and what will happen if we keep up a particular lifestyle. And then yesterday I looked at conditionality, the central doctrine of the Buddha, that everything arises in dependence on conditions, and I had this big diagram, which is Jayarava's mega diagram with all the different spiral paths that are there within different Buddhist scriptures, and it was really interesting to just look at all of those and see just how similar they are. Really, they're just they're just little details, really, but it's the same. It's the same overall path of ethics, then meditation, and then wisdom. And and then today, so I think this is going to be the last in the series on Buddhist metaphysics, and then before I'm going to take another break. So I'm doing 28 days on and 7 days off as a humanitarian strategy, for giving myself a break. I'm enjoying doing this. I'm enjoying coming up with things, but there's the Buddha says that when you've got to pay attention to not just to what what you're thinking or the views that you have, but also to the state of your mind. That whether he said something like, if you just let yourself get exhausted and really tired, then that isn't very helpful. So not that I feel exhausted, I feel all right, but it's good to have a break. It's good to have a break, give the mind a rest and that, and then come back with refreshed and with new ideas. So after this session, there's going to be another 4. So I'm going to do a little mini series on something. I'm not quite sure what yet. I've got an idea. It'd be nice to actually bring some other order members in and maybe interview them or something like that. That's the idea I've got in my head at the moment, which may or may not happen. So today we're coming on to views, and in a way, the views are our map of the world, and the views that we have then sort of lead to how we act. So if we think that amassing material possessions and pleasant experiences is going to lead to happiness, then that's what we'll do. That's what we'll go about doing. That's what we'll be emotionally interested in. So I'm going to look at that, how views and emotions are connected, and I've got a recording of Sagaramati, who's the top scholar within our movement, within Triratna, in discussion about views. I think some really interesting. I want just let you hear what he says about it, and then I'm going to expand on that. Speak to what he's saying as well, with some of my own ideas. That's what's going to happen today. So it's quite good to have a recap, because then it allows people to arrive, and it also points people backwards to, if you just coming in straight into this session, then you get to hear what I've been doing before, and maybe you might be interested in some of those talks. And we normally do body work at the beginning before meditating, but for some reason I just feel like just being a bit more quiet today. But there are things we can do while we're sitting down. So yeah, if you're get into your meditation posture, we'll do some seated body work. Okay, so one thing I've very frequently said, and will keep saying forever, because one of the points about mindfulness is that we forget things. We just forget it. What's important. We forget what's important, and other things come into our mind that. And this is part of views, really, so our mind kind of wanders into, from what, it wanders off into here, there and everywhere. And so we just forget, we forget what's, what might have been helpful just 5 minutes ago. So mindfulness is often about recollection. It's about bringing back into your mind how things are, what's important. So the important thing here, is that the energy that we have in our body has an effect on our mind. So if our energy is tired and a bit sluggish, and sometimes we have the view that we're just stuck with it. We're just stuck with whatever. I'm tired. There's nothing I can do about it. But actually, everything that we do with our body has an effect on it. So even quite subtle, particularly quite subtle movements can be quite powerful. So we're going to do an exercise just with our fingers. So I want you to start off, just put your little finger in the air and have a sense of space under your armpits, so as if you've got a kind of tennis ball there or something. And what we're going to do is just do little circles with our little finger. So it's funny, isn't it? When you're doing this, it's like you have to maintain quite a bit of tension in the upper part of your back. So just use this movement as a way of working with the tension in the upper part of your back, so that if you go more slowly, what effect does that have? Or if you do bigger or bigger circles or smaller circles. Just working with your own experience, with whatever desired effect that you're looking for. So at the moment, I'm looking for in my back a kind of a freeing up of energy, like an upwelling of energy, and a release of tension. So what I'm noticing is that I need to just not do very much really, or very, very slow, very tiny circles or something like that. It might be that you need to do the opposite of that. Having a sense of opening your chest in a natural kind of way. And taking your attention down to the big muscles of your thighs, having a sense of your knees moving away from your hips, so that your thighs are becoming longer. Maybe having a sense of an arrow pointing upwards from the crown of your head. And that arrow is just gently lifting your crown of your head up towards the sky. Maybe imagining that there's an arrow from the base of your spine pointing downwards. Again, just keep doing the circles and tuning into what effect you want for that in the upper part of your back, down your sides as well. So imagining that arrow at the base of your spine, and imagine that it's kind of it's pointing slightly forwards. It's pointing down but slightly forwards, and it's as if your pelvis is kind of like rotating. So it's like you're tucking in your tailbone, that your sacrum. And this is giving you a sense of lift. In your torso, that's coming from your pelvis area. Okay, now sort of move to the middle finger, just rotating the middle finger. Again, being aware of the effect that you're wanting to have on the upper part of your back and down the sides of your body. Do you need to be doing something a bit different with the middle finger than you did with your little finger? Yeah, and keep having a sense of opening your chest. What effect is this having on your mind? Is your mind coming awake a little bit? As some sort of stretching is happening, maybe expanding out of the dimensions of your body, upwards, downwards, tucking in your tailbone, energy flowing up your back through the little movements in your fingers, and then going to your index finger, doing the same thing, little circles, keeping the chest open. It's quite nice to just imagine that your mind is just becoming really still. Or that if you have thoughts, you can concentrate on the space between each thought. So choosing what we focus on is really important in meditation. Often what we focus on becomes stronger. This is something we're going to explore today in the talk. So doing the little circles with your fingers. Morning, Liz. Okay, then just waggle your fingers a little bit. Stand and ollie. Oh. So this morning, we're going to just do the mindfulness of breathing in 4 stages. So I'll just ring the bells for that. So if you've not done, I'm trying to bear in mind that some of you might have been here for many weeks, and other people might just be here for the first time. Or might be kind of not watching this on YouTube months later. So the mindfulness of breathing practice is where we just rest our attention on our breath. So we don't try to change the breath in any way, which you might do if you're used to doing yoga. It's more that we just try and observe what is actually there. So we're using the breath as like a neutral object to practice something, which is to come back to the point, keep coming back to the point. So the point is to try and be aware of our breath, and then what will happen is our mind will wander off, usually onto something else, and we'll start dreaming about something or worrying about something, and then if we don't then do anything about that, we'll stay worrying or dreaming about it for the rest of the meditation. But what we do is just try and notice when that's happened and don't worry about it, but then just pick up the breath again, come back to the breath. So we're training ourselves to come back to particular activity, which is to be watching the breath. So that's the basic thing that we're doing in the meditation, but in the way that it's taught in the meditation is taught in Triratna, we usually have 4 stages, and the four stages is just there to to give us a structure that's going to help us to try and be a bit more aware through the meditation, so that each stage is a little bit more challenging than the one before. So in the first stage, we watch our breath come and go, and then we just do a little count. When we notice the breath has just ended, we just count 1 in our mind, just very lightly, and then we watch the breath come in, and we watch it come in, watch it go out, and then we count 2 just lightly in our mind. We watch the next breath come in, watch it go out, count 3, and we keep doing that until we get to 10. And the next breath, we watch it come in, we watch it go out, and we count 1, and 2, and that's like that. So we're counting sets of 10 breaths. And then what we do in the second stage is we just do the same kind of same series of counting, but we just do it before the breath begins. So just before we notice the breath has come into the body, we do a little 1, and then breathe in, breathe out, 2, breathe in, like that. And then in the third stage, we dispense with the counting, so hopefully we've got a bit of momentum by that point, and we're just watching the breath as continuously as we can, coming and going. And then try and keep remembering to come back to it when we've wandered off, which we will do inevitably. And then in the last stage, we just focus on the delicate sensations around the nose and mouth, where the breath passes through past the lips, past the nose. There's some little sensations around there. So we try and kind of stay with those sensations. And it's harder to do that than watch the whole breath because they're quite delicate. But what this can do is it can actually raise our consciousness, because we're having to be really quite aware to stay with these. And our mind has to be more refined to stay with them. So this is the meditation. So remembering the exercise with the energy, trying to get some energy going in our body, connecting with that again, and try to be alive to what's happening in your body, and try to have a sense that there is energy there, doing what you need to do to try and maintain that. And then taking your attention onto your breath and beginning first stage of the mindfulness of breathing. So this practice will be about 15 minutes long. So keeping your face, hands and feet relaxed. In the second stage, we move the counting to just before the breath begins. Again, just try to keep the face relaxed. And tuning into whatever you might need to do to keep the energy there in your body. maybe imagining the arrow pointing upwards to the sky from the crown of your head, and the arrow pointing downwards and tucked in slightly forwards. That's your tailbone tucking in, lifting the lower part of your spine. Chest opening. Thighs becoming longer. So in the third stage, we drop the counting and try and be aware of the breath as continuously as possible through its coming in and going out of the body. So in the fourth stage, we pay attention to the delicate sensations that are there as the breath passes through passes the lips and the nose. Just refining our mind to be aware of these more subtle sensations. Giving the sensations some space in our psyche so that we're not holding them tightly, we're just giving our mind some space as well. Keeping the throat relaxed, the mind quiet.
go back to what you said about why?
Okay, in your own time, just bring your meditation to a close. So just giving ourselves a little bit of space so we're not kind of launching straight into some intellectual activity, but kind of just absorbing the experience that we've had. It's part of the way in which we need to work with our mind, you know, kind of giving it enough space, allowing it to adjust. You know, when we've been doing one thing and we're going to be doing something else. So it's the quality of our attention is as important as, in a way, as what we are attending to sometimes. Okay, so one of the things that I've been quite keen on over the years is within Triratna is sharing my experience of other order members. So I've kind of talked about this quite a bit, really. The whole idea that what really makes us practice is people, you know, the people that we're around. So there's a tradition, well, within Buddhism, of meeting up in large numbers, or meeting up, discussing the Dharma, friendship, that sort of thing. And so when we, so one of the, you know, as well as meditation practice, one of the things that people do within Triratna Buddhism is to have study groups. So, you know, to spend a couple of hours on a particular topic or text or something. And part of the idea of that is that it's not just about gaining the kind of intellectual understanding of something, because, you know, in a way that's the easy side of things, you know, like understanding it. You know, we can become quite clever by understanding things, you know, but it's like Buddhism is about overcoming suffering, and it's like, well, it's about how do we actually put the Dharma into practice in our lives. And we might come up against obstacles within ourselves that are you know, kind of that we're not that aware of, maybe, you know. So like when we look at the Dharma, when we're studying the Dharma, what can happen is what we're actually doing, or things that come up for us, can come up in relation to that ideal, to the ideals that we're trying to bring into our lives. Buddhism and the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha and the community of Buddhists. So, so a big part of a study group is in a way it's about clarifying ideas, but also allowing ideas to kind of go deeper and in a way transform us a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on with it and play a recording of Sagaramati talking about views. So this will get us going. So like a view. So a view. I talked yesterday about earlier I talked about the 4 foundations of mindfulness: body, feeling, mind, which includes emotion, thought, and attention. So this is citta. That's the Pali term. And then views. So the views that we hold. So that all of these have an effect on the mind. What views we hold. And the term in the Satipatthana Sutta that I've translated as views is dharmas. So dharmas is mental objects or mental concomitants. And in the Buddhist tradition, there's not a lot of clarity around this. I don't think. What dharmas are. People sort of talk about, it's the Dharma or it's the teachings or whatever it is. But what I'm going to do is reveal my own kind of ideas on this about how dharmas is views. So what we have in Buddhism is 2 types of mind. We have citta, which is like the active aspect of the mind, which what we're doing, so we're doing thoughts, we're doing emotions, we're doing attention. Our psyche is moving in those different ways, often in response to feeling, to bodily or tangible experiences. Attention tends to be about tangible experiences, emotions about feeling, and thoughts about views. So it's like the mind is moving in this sort of way. But then there's the other type of mind, which is called manas, and this is the mind sense. And in a way, it's what holds views. It's what holds a view. So so I'm going to talk about that later. But just listen to this recording of Sagaramati talking about views. I hope it's loud enough.
Before this little conversation, I thought was really interesting. You said we don't really know what a view is.
Yeah.
And then you were grasping for words, and you said it's like the shape of the concepts that you had.
Yeah, it's almost like the concept is shaped by you. Your being has a shape of a view. Your whole experience is going into this view. Right? Your whole life is expressed in this view. And the 2 big views are, is life worth living, or I want to live on. That's the 2 main ones. If you've had he's thinking of having a family and all that sort of stuff. And so I said, but don't you understand? I know about your family life, and his mother's an older member, his father, they were like buddies, used to go on holiday together and all that. I said, you had a really, really good family upbringing. I've met his sister, they're all lovely people. I said, so you've got an idea of a family life's going to be like that. It might turn out to be the opposite. I said, my family, they weren't bad, mother and father, but I mean, at 17 I just went and joined the Royal Navy. I just wanted out at Dundee and things like that to find out something worthwhile. So I'm saying, well, you've got, if you had my experience of life, you wouldn't be so keen on getting married and having a family. Yeah.
But that sort of suggests the views you've got are sort of a given and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, they're formed, you've created them.
You created them.
And that's why people should do philosophy, because that's a place where you can come across different views. You meet people who are intelligent and have thought about things, and they can open your mind up. That's why philosophy should be taught at school.
Because views are stories as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they have a story. Well, they're not stories, but they have a story.
They have a story.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what when you talk about views, what are you referring to anything the Buddha used? or in the Pali Canon or wherever that is equivalent to what we know?
Well, we don't know what the Buddha was like before he was a Buddha. That's the problem.
No, but I'm just in terms of his teaching
Yeah.
about the word. When we're talking about views, is there an equivalent that we could be looking at in the Pali Canon to find out what the Buddha talks about?
Well, find out what a right view.
So drishti, you mean?
Yeah, drishtis, yeah.
Or did he?
Yeah. And that's why I find the great 40 Sutta, because you have Miccha dittis, or Miccha drishtis, or you have Sama dittis, and perfect ditti. So you have right views, but when you have right views, they are views, but they're helpful views. The view that if I meditate and practice ethics, etc., I will be a better wholesome and have a different experience of life. So you have the view, then you have to try it out and find out whether it works.
And ditti, drishti, does that have the connotation of sight in the way that it does in English?
Well, yeah, I mean, the dasana, I mean, it's to do with seeing. I think there's, well, the word wisdom, you've got sort of knowing and seeing. They're two, I don't know, the two sides of the same coin. It's just a way of talking about it, seeing or knowing. Yeah. Prajna or dasana. That drishti is a view.
And drishti is related to dasana, with the word.
Well, dasana is just an agent noun, so it's just different grammar. Yeah, words change shape and different grammatical things. So they come from the same root.
So it's similar to English in the way we talk about views and seeing the way things are. And it's all a good translation.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're good translations.
So do you see a person's views by how they act from those? You know?
Well, you kind of mean because they are expressing. You know, if you say, you know, who do you support when you're out in one city? They'll express a view, and that view will tell you something about the way they're brought up, maybe, or where they lived, or the people they met.
Or if someone says they have a certain view about something, but then they act quite differently, I suppose you could say they don't really hold that view. They want to hold that view, but they don't.
So they can't live up to it.
Yeah. But it might be quite interesting to look at it metaphor, well, not so much, but quite literally, how what views are, having, you know, the scene, you know, that we look at, a view, you know.
Well, they're opinions.
But they're also a perspective, aren't they? You can talk about point of view, or they're you know, they can, you know, it's the where you're looking, isn't it, as well? It's what you're trying to see, kind of thing.
I suppose I think you talk about it being a deep ingrained attitude or something. And it's a bit like it's not just what you see up here, it's almost like what the fears in your guts are seeing. You know, they're going, you know.
It all seems to be based around, to me, it all comes back to bodily feelings, all of these.
Yeah, okay, so it's really nice to share that, actually, to share some of the, what discussion in the order's like. Yeah. So, so somebody there was talking about, so we're talking about drishti, which is view. And Sagaramati talks about wrong view, right view, and perfect view. So it's like we're trying to cultivate perfect view, so you know we've got this idea of manas being the mind sense, and citta being the mind in the sense of what we're doing. So a way of seeing this. So if you look in the commentaries and things, it says that manas is to dharmas as the eye sense is to visual objects. So the idea of a perspective comes in here. So you know, when we look at we see a view. You know, we look out the window. What happens is some things are in the foreground, some things are in the background, and some things are in the middle ground, and through that we gain, what's called a visual perspective. So perspective just means to see through. Okay, so how is that related to the mind sense? Well, it's the same thing really. So if our mind is in a way looking at mental objects. So mental objects are things like concepts and images. So some things will be in the foreground of our mind and some will be in the background. So for instance, if we're materialistically inclined, maybe what's in the foreground of our experience is the vision of getting a new car, and the vision of ourselves being happy having that new car. And then maybe what's in the background are things like ethics, or kind of worrying about what happens after death, that sort of thing. So it's a bit like I can have this view. What's in the foreground is the car and happiness associated with each other, and the view I have is that I will be happy when I change my car. And this is a hedonic. Hedonic just means feeling orientated. So this is a hedonic view. So it's hedonism. And then in the background is like what happens after death. So, but it might be the other way around. It might be what's in the foreground is a kind of something like a political view that if only so and so wasn't president, then everything would be a lot better. And what might be in the background might be something like worrying about material things. So our views are kind of, this is what we act from. So and in a way, maybe Sagaramati was saying about how emotions are involved in views. It's like the whole of the person is coming to the view. Well, why are things in the foreground of our experience? Well, it's because we're emotionally interested in them. So views condition mind. So the view that we have then leads us to act in a particular way. So because we think that having a car, getting a new car, replacing the car is going to bring us happiness, then that's what we desire. That's what we want. We go. That's what we go about getting. Because what we want is happiness. So if that's what we believe, then we go about it. So this is really relevant. The views, emotions, connection there in like loving kindness meditation, the metta bhavana. So if our view is that I'm just an object, that succeeds and fails depending on how well I do with various tasks, then our emotion is probably going to be a bit indifferent towards ourselves, or maybe critical when we're not doing what we think we should be doing. But if our view is that we're a human being who is fallible and imperfect and cares about their experience and doesn't want to suffer and has various needs, then the view is going to be, the emotion is going to be, we'll want to look after ourselves, we'll want to actually bring happiness about for ourselves. So I think when we're talking about views in Buddhism, so people often talk about insight as seeing into the nature existence, seeing it into the three marks of conditioned existence. That things are impermanent, things are inherently bound up with suffering and don't have an essence to them. There's no essence, there's no thing there really. There's just a process going on. So when we I need to go slower here. So if you think, oh, that's the view that we should be trying to have insight into, to develop insight, which is like a view that lots of people have, that they need to make progress. I need to make progress, therefore I need to develop insight, therefore I need to reflect on the lakshanas and all that. Then what can happen is that we forget about the reason why we're doing it in the first place. So the reason why we're doing it in the first place is to overcome suffering for ourselves and others. So I think the view, always perfect view, right view, always needs to include compassion. It always needs to include people. It's about people. It's about people coping with life. So it's as important to think that we need to maintain ethics and loving kindness and care when we're thinking about right view, as it is to be thinking in terms of some like intellectual understanding, or even taking that deeper into some insight into the nature of things. So we only see the nature of things is only important in the context of it being people that need to cope with that, cope with impermanence, cope with insubstantiality and suffering. So how do we work on our views? How might we change a view from one view to another view? How might somebody reflect on what their views are? So I suppose we need to maybe have a way of bringing them to the surface. So what do we think about all the time? Maybe that indicates what our view is. What's our preoccupation? So we might think that we have a certain view about things. We might think that I might think that I'm I'm on the middle way and practicing Buddhism, and that I'm heading towards enlightenment. But what I'm actually thinking about, what's my mind preoccupied with in reality. And it's said that the middle way isn't, in a way, the middle way is the monk with his alms bowl. He's got enough there to be going on with, and then he's practicing reflection and meditation and trying to practice ethics and develop qualities and all that sort of thing, having met his basic, if it's a nun, basic needs. So that really is the middle way. I mean, I'm kind of to one side of that. I've got possessions and I'm not living on alms, but I do think about material things, and it would be nice to have that. So we're all in the same situation. We've all got particular views that then are leading to us to act in a particular way. So the ideal in Buddhism is that we would act more ethically. We would sort of let go of things that are maybe in the way, that are not all that helpful, make our lives more essentially about what's essential. So it might be that, well, it is the case that, you know, what's more essential is like our relationships with people, and our, you know, and caring for people and caring for ourselves, and being mindful of what actually works in life, rather than going on what they would say in secular mindfulness, automatic pilot, and we just keep going because that's what we always do. You know, we don't reflect on what we're doing that much. So Sagaramati was talking about a view is a deeply ingrained attitude, and it's almost like I think they talk. I remember on an ordination training retreat, somebody talking about it's like being an oil tanker. So the oil tanker's like moving through the sea, and so if you want to change its direction, the captain will, you know, turn the wheel and everything, but it will take ages for the oil tanker to start turning because of the momentum it's got. So maybe we're like this, that we have all this momentum that we just keep going in a particular direction. To change our views about things just takes ages, you know, because in a way it's about changing the whole of our lives, because it's the whole of our lives that inform our views, not just what we think. I just wanted to talk a little bit about in the Buddhist tradition, there's thinking is divided into two terms. So in the in meditation practice, when you get into what's called the first dhyana, the first level of kind of higher states of consciousness, what it's the text says what arises is initial thought and sustained thought. That's what often in Theravada Buddhism the terms are: initial thought and sustained thought. The Pali terms are vitakka and vicara. So you know, some people have commented that it's just all the same thing. You know, vitakka and vicara, just thinking. Sometimes vitakka's talked about as thinking of, and vicara as thinking about. And I think there is a difference. I think there is a there is a difference between them. So, in a way, what vitakka is holding a view. So within the Pali word taka, it's related. It means something like turn. So it's related to the word torque. You know, torque is like when you have an engine that's got a certain kind of torque to it. It's got a certain momentum, angular momentum to it. So it means to turn. So it's almost like vitakka. Initial thought is like we're turning our mind. The fact that we're turning our mind. We are turning our mind to one view rather than another view. So the fact that we hold a particular view, which is, you know, that getting me an upgrade on my phone is going to bring me happiness. You know, so our mind is turned towards that, and then that's what we dwell on, and that's what we become. That's what our actions, our life becomes about. And then you've got vicara. So the word chara means move or roam. It's like roaming around. So the idea is that thinking about something, thinking about the topic. So in a way, you know, when we're kind of often doing that. You know, well, actually, no, we're not often doing it. If we're clear about what view we have, you know, we're just holding a view and then nothing is challenging that view, nobody's saying anything different about it, then in a way we just keep that view. We don't need to change it. There's nothing challenging it. But if there are two views present, then what often happens is we need to think about it. We need to think about the view. We need to reflect on it. So, is it true? Does that other person have a better view, one that holds up to scrutiny better than the view I have? So in a study group, you would do this. You would sort of reflect on different views, compare your views to others. But vicara and vitakka and vicara don't just take place in the first dhyana, which I think a lot of people think that they do. They're just there in the dhyanas. They're present in unskilful mental states as well. So we hold a view that the best way of dealing with our enemies is to trash them. Or if the we need to keep desire's a good thing, and we need to keep following it and trying to get everything that we can. So when we hold a view like that, which is a view leading to suffering, an unskillful view, one that leads to an unskillful mental state, then what happens is, so say for instance, it's the view that getting an iPhone upgrade is going to bring me happiness. What we then do is we think about it a lot. So our mind keeps going back to imagining what it's going to be like with all these new apps we can use, and whatever the new whistles and bells are with the iPhone. So our mind goes back and back to it, and this is a process we call papanca, or mental proliferation. So the word pancha is 5. So you get pancha sila as the 5 precepts. So papancha, and I think the reason why it's 5, it's a bit like, that's 5, isn't it? It's 5. It's like spreading out. There's a sense of spreading out. I think this is Thanissaro gives this this reason why it's papancha. It's like things are spreading out, and so our mind just spreads out around the papanchizes around the view, which is like, the new iPhone's going to give me happiness, and I think what happens is when it does that, it reinforces the view. It's almost like it becomes stronger and stronger that is the case as we build up emotional connections with the view. Then we start to feel it's more urgent. So we can go in these two directions. Vitakka and vicara take us in these two possible directions of firming up a wrong view, because it's wrong in the sense that in the end, if we get attached to things that fall apart, then that's when we suffer. So it's wrong in that sense. So we get more and more ingrained invested in a wrong view, or we go if this is skillfulness, if we reflect on the benefits of loving kindness, of ethics, and so that would happen in a study group where we'd be reminded of both in what people are saying, but also in their embodiment, what they like. When we meet up with other Buddhists, it's like we get a sense of the embodiment, and then we go, oh yeah, it works. This works. We get to hear people's experience, and this gives us some kind of hope and things. And also when we meditate in a way, we're doing this. When we're doing the loving kindness meditation, we're reflecting on. We start to get it over time. We get it. Oh yeah, no, this is worth doing. We remember how it feels to be happy and to, what happiness is for us. We remember that. If we're doing the metta bhavana, we're focusing on, we're trying to remember that from the past. We go, oh yeah, no, this is important. This is important. So we do the positive side of reflection, and we reinforce that right view. That it's important to be caring for ourselves. It's important to be being aware and all that. So when in the series of the dhyanas, this is happening in the first dhyana. We're reflecting on. I suppose what we're doing, if we're doing a metta bhavana, what we're doing is we're trying to become. Maybe we've decided that this is that skillfulness is a good idea, so we're going to try and be skillful in our emotions, and then. So what we're trying to do is in the meditation is convince ourselves of that, is to find good reasons for it, is to move our view more firmly in the direction of loving kindness. Really, we really need to develop it. We want to really want it, to want to develop it. So this is the emotion, wanting to develop it, and then once at a certain point we'll be convinced that this is it. This is what we're doing. And there won't be any kind of doubt. We won't need to think about it anymore. We'll be convinced about it. We'll have faith in it. And then we do what we do in the second dhyana, which is we just do it. We just, we feel inspired. And we just go about doing it. We go about practicing kindness. We go about practicing ethics. And because we believe in it, because we that's the view we hold. That is what we need to be doing. So we don't. There's no more need to think about it. And then what happens is our emotions become more and more on board. And that's where there's joy and happiness in the first dhyana, but maybe that's more of a quiet, reflective type of joy and happiness. And then in the second dhyana, it's more that the passions come about. We start to become enthusiastic about things, and our emotions become more and more involved, and we feel inspired. So in this way, our views support things like inspiration. So it's not like support our emotions going in the right directions. Because so it's not like sometimes people talk about, particularly people who like Zen Buddhism, and all the paradox and everything, and there can be a bit of a view that concepts are bad in some way or other, or that it's just in his head, it's just. People get, so people can, we can be in our heads, we can be just having an intellectual understanding of things, not taking it any deeper. But I think in Ratnaguna's book, The Art of Reflection, he talks about the concepts being kind of included within the bigger picture, in enlightenment, rather than excluded, rather than being something that we get beyond. So we don't really get beyond them, because we always need to be having some sort of understanding of things. Having the word sampajanna is sometimes translated as clear comprehension. So we're mindful, we're aware, is one thing. That's the active side of things. That's citta, is mindfulness, as citta. And then there's manas, which is more clear comprehension. It's like we understand how things work. What's the map? What's the map for the terrain? So we need the map before we can go. Otherwise, we're going to be going in the wrong direction. But the map isn't the terrain. So we do need the map. And in that recording, a bit further on, I think Sagaramati talks about. So people often have this idea that the Buddha had no views, and therefore, what they do is they rush ahead, ahead of themselves and go, okay, well, I need to have no views then. So what can happen is we can get into kind of pretending that we don't have any views, but this is, you just have to look at our minds, what our minds are doing to tell whether we've got any views or not. What do our minds keep coming back to? What are we obsessed about? So this tells us what our views are, so the idea that the Buddha doesn't have any views, Sagaramati said, well, it's because he doesn't need any views. There's no need for opinions or anything like that. Why? So why would that be the case? That the Buddha doesn't need any views. Well, I suppose the reason is because what's in the foreground of his experience is completely aligned with reality. So it's like the perspective he has is coterminous with how things are. So and so whatever happens to him, whatever experiences he has, then that will be the view that he this is how things are. There's no resistance to how things are. So in a way, his view is permanently shaped by his experience. I talked about views being brought about by three processes. From the body or tangible experience, there's observation. Observation affects our views. From feeling, there's acceptance. So if we accept however we're feeling as part of reality, as to be expected, then our views about feeling are in line with reality. And then reflection. So if our thinking is, we keep bringing our thinking in line with reality, then our views become in line with reality. So these are the three types of wisdom: dhyana, or direct knowing; vidya, or intuitive understanding; and prajna, or the more kind of active, like reflective type of wisdom. So so the Buddha has no views because he doesn't need to have any views. He sees, he's very clear. He has complete clear comprehension about everything. And in Theravada Buddhism, you have four levels of sampajanna, of clear comprehension. You've got at the bottom, you've got the clear comprehension, which is about what was it? It's like mindfulness of purpose. So you know why you're doing something. You clearly comprehend why you're doing something. And then the next level is mindfulness of suitability. So it's like it's almost like looking at the conditions that are needed for something, and you act in a suitable way. So it's like you don't use your will against against the reality of how things work. You got to look at how things work, and then you act in a suitable way. And then there's clear comprehension of domain. So you see what's the body, and what are feelings, what's the mind, what are views. You don't mix them up. You don't sort of try and work with. You don't try and you relax by working in the physical domain. Relaxation is like unfurling a fist. It's not a mental thing. So yeah, you work in the right place to get the effect that you're looking for. So you clearly comprehend all the different domains, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then the final one, sampajanna, is called asamoha sampajanna, which means complete non-delusion. So moha means delusion. So this is the level of comprehension that's there at the level of enlightenment. The Buddha or other enlightened beings just kind of completely clearly comprehend everything, how everything works, how it all fits together. There's a complete overview of everything. So they know how suffering is overcome, how happiness is brought about. They're able to teach that to others. And yeah, the perspective can't be. It's as big a perspective as it's possible to have. So what have I missed out? Yeah, so I think one important thing to think here, is Ruth. Yeah, papanca is a kind of vicara. Yeah. So I think important thing to think here is that there's no time when we're not in possession of views. We always are coming from one perspective or another. So like the 4 foundations of mindfulness are kind of they're ever present. We've always got some sort of bodily experience, some tangible experience. We've always got some feeling, pleasure or pain going on, or neutrality. We've always got, our mind is always doing something or other in those 3 areas, and we always have a view. So there's no escape. There's no escaping having to deal with our views, and but we can do it we can work on our views in a kind of gentle way, through a kind of gentle exploration, often so on a Buddhism course at the Buddhist Centre, this is how a Buddhism course will be done. There'd be a presentation on some aspect of Buddhism. Might be the Buddha's enlightenment, or the Four Noble Truths, or something like that, or the idea that life contains suffering. And then people would be asked to, invited to split up into small groups and then talk about, well, do you think that's true, or how does that work in your experience? Do you have a different view to that? So the way it works is, like, on the one hand you've got something presented over here, which is like the Buddhist view, and then over here it's like, well, what are your views? So it's like trying to bring the two into some sort of dialogue, but it's a gentle exploration, and a natural exploration that's kind of about just done in a sort of soft kind of way. So it's like the mind needs to be kind of soft to take reality in. It needs to be buoyant. It needs to be we need to be in kind of pleasant conditions where there's like friendliness around and that sort of thing. So really, yeah, people make progress with views through different conditions. Through through the basic conditions that are there in ethics meditation, in an ethics and meditation. You know, we calm, we're receptive, you know, we're connected to others, that sort of thing. You know, we feel there's a sort of degree of trust and friendliness there. So yeah, so one of the main things that the Buddha said about views is the problem with views is that they tend to lead to disputes, and he really emphasised that, you know, kind of just watch that, you know, watch out for getting into disputes, you know, because of views. So views are just there to serve us, in the sense, serve our progress towards happiness and towards enlightenment. And you know, so the way that we go about having discussions is important. I'll just finish on saying something about the importance of right view. So I noticed that Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a well-known Buddhist teacher, in his order, the order of Interbeing, they have I think they have something like 14 precepts that they follow. I might be wrong, something like that. This is what I can remember. One of those is to not get into disputes about views. So it's this exact point, you know. But I did wonder a little bit about Thich Nhat Hanh, about, well, okay, it's good to not get into conflict about things, but it's also good to actually have a right view. So to be kind of like rigorous about, you know, about what is the truth, you know. So the Buddha isn't saying that we shouldn't have any views, or, you know, we should just accept other people's views, or just try and be tolerant of all views and all that sort of thing. He's actually saying that, well, we should be in dialogue about views, in friendly dialogue about them, but some views are more right than others, you know. So it's not the case that he's not vague about it. You know, there is a way in which we need to be, you know, really clear about what does lead to enlightenment, what does lead to happiness and stuff. And so it's not all about being nice. It's not all about just being tolerant. It's about being clear as well. And yeah. So I think I've said pretty much everything there now. Might be the longest session yet, an hour and 43 minutes. So this is the end of the series on Buddhist metaphysics, and so today I talked about views. We did a mindfulness of breathing meditation, a bit of seated body work, and then we went into views. I kind of shared some of Sagaramati's thinking on views, and also my own thinking that's come about over the last period that I've been working on my book, which is going to be called, hopefully, when it comes out, Mindfulness: The Undiscovered Foundations. So I hope you found this enjoyable and helpful, and moving on to the next series tomorrow. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye bye.